Have we completely forgotten that these exist? What's up, sneaker people? It's your boy FB Kicks and Gear, and I am back with another legit check guide. And we have the almost forgotten Travis Scott Jordan 6 Olive. I know y'all remember these. I know y'all remember in the beginning of the Travis Scott Jordan 1 and Nike collab fanfare that we had these, in my opinion, really good looking Jordan 6s. Probably one of my favorite Jordan 6s to release in the past 5 to 10 years. And these 6s have had a pretty crazy story. They were super hyped and super sought after for a very long time, and then out of nowhere people just stopped wanting them. It might have been around the time of the British Khaki release where I think that decline started to come in, and I don't know why that kind of set the trigger either, because I think the British Khakis are a fantastic shoe too, and I do have a retail pair of those, so maybe I'll post a video doing a legit check guide at some point. But right now the focus is on these, and yeah, there really isn't that much hype around them. I remember at one point they were going for $700, $800, and now they're going for a cool $450 and even lower in some sizes. But I still think they're a dope shoe, and it's still worth doing legit checking guides on them, because this is one of the few shoes that, even though there hasn't been much hype driving them, the reps are actually getting better and better and better and better. So I figure let's do an updated 2024 legit check guide and go into the details like I usually do. But before I do that, remember guys, please join us on Discord, the Saturday Morning Losers Club. We do giveaways every single month. I'm not 100% sure what this month's giveaway is. I think it might be a pair of dupe AirPod Maxes, but I'm not sure. So if you're interested in different giveaways, please join the Discord, and know that in order to qualify for winning, you have to be a part of the Discord and you have to be subscribed to me. We do check, so please join up. Link is in the description. The next thing is that, just like with all of my videos, there is always somewhere that you can go to find more detailed pictures of the replica, because the details are what matter, and those are what you're going to be able to use to do your legit checking. So on the Instagram account on the screen, this is not my Instagram account, but this is where these shoes are posted. Head over there, do the deep dive, look for the details, and if you have questions about batches and things like that, direct all those questions towards those Instagram accounts. Remember, I have nothing for sale on this channel. I am not condoning or promoting the sale of counterfeit goods, but I do think it's important that I point you guys in the right direction so you can get the details and the information that you need to be able to legit check effectively. So Instagram account on the screen for that. With that said, guys, let's dig into these shoes, and we're gonna start with the boxes because that is the easiest place to start. I'm gonna ask you guys to forgive me because I am working with a slightly different lighting setup today. I'm trying something new. So please, while you're watching this video, leave some comments on how you feel the lighting is, and I will make sure that I address some of that in the next video. I'm working on this studio setup being efficient, easy to set up, and that'll allow me to bang out videos a lot quicker and faster. So with all that said, let's start taking a look at the boxes. And as you can see, we got the big ass Jordan 6 box. The top is an olive green. The Jumpman, the Cactus Jack, the Jumpman Air logo are all a bright infrared color. You see the Cactus Jack face, and this is the authentic box. The rep box, for once, very similar in size, but just like it has been the case for the past couple of years, the colors are just slightly off. You guys can see that even with the lighting. You've got like a warmer olive green, while you have a cooler, kind of dustier olive green on the authentic. You can also see that the box is definitely, you can see the corrugated portions of it underneath, which is something that I tend to see on reps a lot. Now, the authentic definitely has it too. sort of, but it's really not to the same extent. The corrugations are definitely a lot wider on the rep as well. And what I mean by corrugations, if you guys don't know, it's these ridges that you can see beneath the paper that covers the box itself. Outside of that, there's not really much to talk about. I got these from GOAT, so there's my GOAT tag in there. It's black paper and it's a red, really shiny inside. Rep is really shiny. Again, you can see the corrugations a lot more on the rep box than you can on the authentic. Black paper. Take a look at those size tags. Left is authentic as always. You can see the differences in weight. In this case, you can actually see that the rep has an RFID tag on it. A little bit hard to see behind the paper, but it's definitely there. So you guys got to be careful because that RFID tag is starting to pop up on more and more and more replicas as a standard thing. So please pay attention to that. But with that said, guys, that's the box. The color's probably the one thing that you have to pay attention to, and you can pay attention to the consistency of the size tag compared to an authentic box if you have one. So with that said, let's get into the sneakers. So as I've mentioned before, I've been a big fan of these. I've had these for a while. I have not un-DS'd them yet for plenty of reasons. I got plenty of shoes and I still just haven't worked my way to wearing these yet. And for whatever reason, an all olive shoe, while it doesn't sound like it should be hard to wear, it is for me. So I just haven't made my way to wearing them yet. But nonetheless, I think they are super dope. I think both Travis Scott 6s are super dope. And the reps have been interesting for the life of this shoe, and they weren't always good. And in my early days in my older channels, I've reviewed a couple of the replica Travis Scott Jordan 6s, and they were always plagued with issues. The nubuck was like brown instead of being an olive green. The midsoles were, some of them didn't even glow in the dark, which is fucking weird, but they have definitely come a long way. And looking at these guys, these side by side, you can definitely see that these are super close, which is not something that I was expecting. But let's get the shoes side by side and let's start doing the comparison. One of the things that I always wanted to compare when it came to these is the outsole. This is something that reps have struggled with forever. And you can see it demonstrated here. Now, am I going to say that this is a huge deal? Probably not, because used versions of these definitely yellow, and they yellow relatively quickly. So when you're talking about used pairs, this is gonna be what you see. But look at these two dead stock pairs side by side. Clearly you can see that the authentic pair is a lot lighter, it's a lot icier than the pre-aged yellowing of the rep pair. And I don't know why they chose to do it that way, but here we are. I've got to think that it's an intentional thing that they did to make it this yellow, because maybe they're trying to catch up with aged pairs, possibly. But as you can see, the authentic pair right here, still pretty icy as the day that I got it. So, but side by side, you can see that color immediately. But outside of that, it starts to get a lot more subtle. Looking at the black midsole, you can see that there is a slight sheen difference to it. It feels like the authentic is just a little bit glossier, while the texture on the rep makes it just a bit more matte. Definitely something that'd be very, very difficult to even tell without having them side by side. But most importantly, we go into the uppers, and I gotta say, side by side, the uppers are identical or almost identical. One of the things that I've noticed consistently on replica Travis Scott Jordan 6s is that for the longest time, they didn't even get the color right, but now that they're getting the color a lot closer, it still just tends to be a lot lighter than the authentic pair. Especially in some of the panels, you can see a color difference It's super subtle here, and even looking at them right in front of me, the only thing that I'm picking up on is a slight, maybe warmer hue to the nubuck on the rep than on the authentic. But man, it's super subtle, super subtle. Turning over to the side, actually it's probably a better view if I do it like this. So we're doing 1-to-1. One of the things that I am noticing too is that there's a slightly bulkier profile with the rep pair than on the authentic, and you can still see the subtle darker nature to the authentic nubuck than the rep. And one of the things that I'm seeing immediately is looking at the difference in the heel bubbles here. It's shallow and it's wider than on the authentic. I think that's a pretty noticeable difference when you're doing it side by side. Look at the depth. The bubble on the authentic is definitely just protrudes a lot more, and it's more shorter, and it's shorter and more concise. It's just wider on the rep. I kind of get the same vibes here. These little ridges are a little bit wider and flatter on the rep, and they are just more protruding and rounder on the authentic. I don't think that's something that I ever noticed before doing this comparison, but underneath the holes you can see that the 3M layer is there on the rep just as it is on the authentic. Pay attention to the way just the different panels come together. While 6s can vary pretty drastically, there's still some consistency to it, so pay attention to the way those panel shapes come together. Moving to the back of the shoe, you see the Nike Air. Putting them down side by side, I can see the rep on the right is just a tad bit taller than the authentic pair, as well as just a tad bit wider. But when we compare those embroideries, it's possible that the rep is just a tad bit darker too, with that infrared embroidery there. But the style looks perfect. Nike embroidery tends to be shit anyway, so but yeah, they got it close. And I can't really put my finger on it, but there seems to be a slight difference in the color of the back heel tab as well. It's definitely wider here on the authentic pair than it is on the rep, where it looks like it's a little bit more pinched and sits up higher. Sorry guys for the mid position change. It looks like I'm getting a little bit better lighting here than I was a little bit further out. So, but yeah, you guys can see that slight color difference there. Doing the top down view right here, definitely blown away by how close these are. They really honed in on the nubuck style. You can see how ashy and dusty it is. I'm still seeing a wider profile, especially up at the toe, than on the authentic. And looking at the Jumpman, in the past I've seen rep Jumpmen on this lace patch cover here being a lot smaller than the authentic, but definitely got the size right. But you definitely can see the color difference, the infrared being a little bit darker than the infrared on the retail pair, which is just generally more vibrant. Let's take a look at the Cactus Jack on the other, just for the sake of being thorough. Positioned very similarly. You can definitely see from this back view the slight color difference in the nubuck, but the texture is exactly the same. You see the same type of movement and transitionary nubuck there. Another slight difference I'm seeing is that this little ankle collar part right here is definitely more puffy and padded than on the authentic. It sticks out a little bit, protrudes a little bit on the rep, and you see even on this other shoe, you see the same thing going on with that ankle bubble. So definitely some differences in build and structure. The authentic pair just seems to have everything tighter and more concise than on the rep, and that tends to be the case across the board for most shoes. Now, there is one telltale sign that I've always looked to when doing these real versus fakes for this shoe specifically, and it's always been difficult because without actually having an authentic pair right next to you, you absolutely will not be able to tell the difference, because the way the light plays on this specific feature can really change how you see it, and in certain lights it will look 100% the right way. And ironically, my eyes are playing tricks on me right now, and I'm gonna tell you what I mean. The telltale sign has always been on this liner of the pocket. Now, it's funny because looking at them right in front of me right now and seeing them through the camera, they do not look the same at all. When I look at it in person with the lighting, this looks very much green to me, right? But when I look in the camera, it is almost a charcoal gray. Now, when I pull the replica right here, it's the exact opposite. When I look at it, it looks very, very gray, even in this lighting right in front of me. But when I look at it in the video camera, it looks greener. So it's crazy. This nylon little thing here will throw you through a loop. But when you put them together and you compare them side by side, they aren't exactly the same, and they don't hit light in the same way. It's fucking wild to me. I really don't know how else to explain it. This charcoal gray has never been matched on a rep that I have ever seen. And you can see that they just come off differently in the light, even though they do look very similar. So that's your telltale sign right there. For sure, I don't know how they've been able to improve so much, and they've been able to accurately get a lot of these materials, but this sock liner has always been the way, or this pocket liner on the stash pocket has always been the way that I've been able to legit check. And it's hard because this thing doesn't even look the same for me looking at it in person and then me looking at it in the camera. So definitely a wacky kind of tricky thing, but very good legit checking tool when it comes to this shoe. But other than that, I'm really not going to go too much into depth because I'm going to be honest with you, I really don't want to do a black light test. These things glow in the dark. I know the reps glow in the dark, and the authentic glow in the dark, so there's not really much to go into that. The insoles are just black with white lettering, and the reps get that right as well. There's really not much else to talk about, but overall, I would say that these shoes are very legit checkable, especially in the DS condition, mostly looking at the midsole. But the materials, they've gotten so much closer than what they were a couple years ago, and I'm super impressed by that. And we'll just quickly, while we're at it, take a look at the laces, because the laces are usually one of the things that the rep factories don't really spend that much time focusing on. But taking the yellow lace, my least favorite lace here when it comes to the shoe, you can see that the yellows are different. You've got like a darker, more mustardy yellow than the authentic pair being more vibrant of a yellow, but the grays look fairly similar. I actually don't think there's a difference in the grays at all. Maybe the rep being a little bit darker, but other than that, they look exactly the same. And then it's just the small details. I'm seeing a slight difference in the finish of the tongues. Notice how the rep tongue is a little bit more rubbery, looks like it's glossy. It's a different finish, while the authentic has a smooth matte finish to it, but still has the frayed edges through the windows. Taking a look at the lace locks, my autofocus just goes to shit halfway through the video on this iPhone, but taking a look at the lace locks, they look very similar. I would say that maybe there's a slight color difference, but the text looks exactly the same. Outside of that, guys, I don't think there's anything else worth digging into. You see the indicators in the outsole, the laces, and the tongue. So with that said, guys, remember, join the Discord. Remember, head over to the Instagram account so you can see more pictures of the rep so you know what to focus on. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.